Regiments of Renown are cool and all, but have you ever thought that unlocking them is just a littlest bit boring? You get your faction leader to a certain level and boom, you can instantly recruit these unit variants. It could and should be more interesting, and that's where the Dogs of War mod comes in. It not only brings together a bunch of modded Regiments of Renown for the Empire, but also introduces an all-new mechanic to unlock them. As with most things, this all starts in the campaign. Whenever you fight a battle or raid territory, there's a small chance for a Dogs of War camp to spawn, and these just look like quest battles on the map. If you move one of your lords over to these camps, an event will pop up giving you the choice of 3 Dogs of War Regiments of Renown at the cost of a small amount of gold. These can then be recruited from the Regiments of Renown menu. I know this may seem like a very minor change, but the catch is that you can get any of the large number of Regiments of Renown at any time. So instead of the usual progression of first unlocking Sigmar's Sons, which are basically unbreakable swordsmen, you can instead be walking away with, say, Azarnil, the Dragon Lord, an endgame dragon unit. Speaking of which, the units in this mod are a mix of vanilla, units from the OVN Araby mod, and Kataf's Southern Realms. So, first up, the vanilla units. Long Drong's Slayer Pirates, and these are of course coming from the Dwarves, and are a variant of their Slayer Pirate units. They gain the Dwarf Rum ability, which drops the attack of nearby enemies. Oglar Khan's Wolf Boys come from the Chaos Dwarves, and are a variant of their Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, and they come with buffs across the board to almost every stat, alongside flammable attacks and the Pelt of Wolfhag ability, which slows all nearby enemies that are rooting or broken. And Ruglud's Armoured Orcs, and these are of course coming from the Greenskins, and are actually quite a unique unit. They have more range than the Orc Araboys alongside stat boosts across the board, making them decently powerful mid-range, mid-damage, mid-defense units. From Araby, we have just the one unit, and that is Al Mukhtar's Desert Dogs, and these are a desert version of the Arabian Nights. They drop some armor to gain speed and boost to both melee stats alongside Vanguard and constant leadership sapping for all enemy units. All this boils down to is a lighter, faster cavalry unit that does a decent job at getting off lots of flanks. And lastly, the majority of the units coming from Kataf's Southern Realms. First of all, Asanel the Dragon Lord. This is a buffed Star Dragon from the High Elves with a small stat increase to melee and charge. It gains some additional physical and fire resistance alongside the Dragon Tamer ability, which reduces the leadership of nearby enemy units. Overall, it's a powerful flying melee unit with great range damage with the breath, great front lines capability, and will shatter units with ease provided it doesn't get pinned down and picked apart. The Birdmen of Katraza? I mean, how do you even try to explain what these are? They're decently damaging but lower range flying ranged infantry that fold like a sheet if you let them get anywhere near any kind of damage. They can use their up and under ability to move around unseen for a short time, but honestly this is a bit of a gimmick, so use at your own discretion. Braganza's Besiegers are a buffed version of the Pavis Crossbowmen from the mod. They come with a lot more armor alongside some melee and ammo buffs, but it's a little less speed. They're a little harder to get rid of and stay shooting for a very long time, but I'd be surprised if you could find a battle that went on long enough for them to use their full reserves. Bronzino's Galloper Guns are a slightly tougher and more damaging version of the regular Galloper Guns, which act like a weaker cannon from the Empire, but have the option to pack up to move around faster. The Knights of Arregio are a fairly tough front lines infantry unit with high armor, leadership, and melee stats. Damage isn't all that great, but they'll hold the line for a very long time no matter what comes their way. Leopold's Leopard Company are another tanky frontlines unit, but this one is better versus large targets with bonus damage and charge defense. They'll also gain a bonus to their attack whilst above 50% HP, so will actually output some decent damage if you keep them healthy. The Marksmen of Maragliano are essentially slightly buffed crossbowmen. Mengil Manhide's Manflayers are a slightly more armoured but a little slower greatsword shades from the Dark Elves. Their actual combat stats are the exact same, but they do gain a couple of abilities to increase their missile resistance when out of melee and increase their leadership and attack at the cost of nearby allied leadership when in melee. Perazzo's Lost Legion are similar to the Leopard Company but drop a few entities and immunity to psychology. Rico's Republican Guard are similar again but gain boost to almost everything, but drop little speed from the Lost Legion. The Alcanti Fellowship are similar again, but more entities and lower armor and melee stats than the Lost Legion. The Cursed Company are similar to Cairn Wraiths, but drop almost all of their stats to gain a massive boost to entity count and even more damage. That said, they drop the resistance, so aren't exactly what you might call even remotely tough. They come with several abilities to bolster their own leadership when healthy and heal themselves whilst battling. They don't deal the most damage in the world, but make for decent, self-sustaining chaff shredders as long as you pick the right targets. Tichi Huichi Raiders are Cold One Riders from the Lizardmen but drop a little health and damage to gain much more speed alongside melee stats and a charge bonus. They also gain the ability to slow the speed of nearby enemy units, making them easy targets for charging. They're honestly the best form of Cold One Riders and make for a decent and cool looking cav if you're into that sort of thing. Vespero's Vendetta are variants of duelists, which are most similar to high elf rangers. These drop some armor and speed to gain much improved melee stats and a little damage. They're another chaff shredder with the low armor piercing and anti-infantry damage. They drop off once you reach the mid game and everyone has armor, but can do really good work early on. And lastly, Volan's Venators, and these are the closest to Knights of the Realm from Bretonnia, but gain stat improvements across the board at the cost of a little bit of speed. Add on the Last One to Die's Assisi ability, granting them perfect vigor when charging, and they can stay on the move for an extremely long time, racking up a ton of kills in the process. We also have Anaconda's Amazons, and I'm honestly not sure where these come from, so if anyone knows, let me know in the comments. They're a little like Wildwood Rangers, but drop quite a number of stats to gain a little bit of charge and ward save. They're effective flanking infantry with decent speed in that vanguard, allowing them to start in a hidden location. In combat, they'll deal great damage with high armor piercing and attack, but will also feel the burn pretty quick with the low defenses. Now, whilst the units of this mod aren't really anything unique you can't get anywhere else, the system to unlock them is totally different to anything else I've seen in game. I see this as a similar mod to the unit caps, where it's a minor change on the surface, but it totally changes how one aspect of the game works. I would love to see all of the vanilla Regiments of Renown integrated into this mod, as it's a much more interesting and engaging way to unlock them through actual efforts than it is to have them ready and waiting once you reach a certain level. Obviously, this mod is just for the Empire, but similar systems implemented for all vanilla factions would also be a really cool change. Nothing here is complicated to interact with and flows very naturally with the game, since you win a battle and simply walk to these camps if you want to collect some new units. If you want to play without them, you simply ignore it and no harm done. In my opinion, this is a must-have for any Empire campaign that allows it. It simply adds to the experience with no real downside, outside of spending a little bit more gold. But that's all I have on the Dogs of War mod for Total War Warhammer 3. Let me know your thoughts on the mod as well as any others you'd like me to take a look at in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and if you want more mod videos for Warhammer 3, then check out this one, all about the Fishmen.